August 19th, 1942. A Japanese officer writes in his diary, trembling hands, recording something no imperial soldier had ever experienced before. 917 veteran troops, battle-hardened from China, confident, unstoppable. 24 hours later, 800 of them would be dead. This is the story of the battle that shattered Japan's illusion of invincibility. The Japanese assumption. Colonel Ichiki's orders were clear. Wait for reinforcements. But Ichiki didn't wait. He looked at his 917 elite soldiers and laughed at the idea of American resistance. These are Americans, he told his officers. Soft, undisciplined. We'll sweep them into the sea before sunrise. Every Japanese soldier believed this. They'd crushed European armies in Southeast Asia. They'd dominated China for 5 years. Night combat? Close quarters? That's where Japanese warriors excelled. But they didn't know what was waiting for them across that sandbar. Guadalcanal wasn't just a battlefield. It was a death trap. 90 miles of dense jungle, mountains reaching 8,000 feet. Heat so suffocating that men collapsed from heat stroke in the shade. Mosquitoes so thick you'd inhale them with every breath. Malaria, dengue fever, dysentery, tropical ulcers that ate through flesh. The environment killed more men than bullets ever would. But something else was happening on this island. Something the Japanese High Command had fatally underestimated. August 7th. 11,000 U.S. Marines stormed ashore and captured a half-finished Japanese airfield. They named it Henderson Field. And this single airstrip changed the entire war. Control Henderson Field? You control the skies for 200 miles. Control the skies? You control who lives and who dies. The Japanese needed it back. Immediately. August 19th. 6 Japanese destroyers land Ichiki's force 15 miles east of the American perimeter. Perfect insertion. Undetected. Professional. Ichiki sends out a patrol to scout enemy positions. And that's when everything goes wrong. The patrol runs straight into a Marine patrol led by Captain Charles Brush. 31 Japanese soldiers killed in minutes. Documents captured. The Marines now know exactly what's coming. General Vandegrift reads the captured intelligence and immediately understands. They're coming tonight. From the east, across the Tenaru River sandbar. He orders machine guns positioned along the riverbank. Interlocking fields of fire, anti-tank guns loaded with canister rounds, giant shotgun shells that turn men into mist. Every advantage of terrain calculated, every weapon zeroed in. The Marines wait in the darkness. Just after midnight, a Solomon Island scout named Jacob Vuza stumbles into Marine lines. He's been tortured for hours by the Japanese, bayoneted, left for dead. He gasps out a warning. They're coming. Hundreds of them. And then the screaming starts. Hundreds of Japanese soldiers charge across the sandbar. Battle cries echoing through the jungle. Rifles firing. Grenades exploding. They're running straight into the killing zone. The Browning machine guns open fire. 600 rounds per minute. Water-cooled. Never overheating. Never jamming. Japanese soldiers fall in waves. Those who make it across hit the 37mm anti-tank guns. Canister rounds at point-blank range. It's a slaughter. Wave after wave, for hours, charging into machine gun fire. Some reach the Marine positions. Hand-to-hand combat. Knives, fists, desperation. But the defensive line holds. As dawn breaks, the sandbar is covered in bodies. Sunrise, General Vandegrift orders a counterattack. 5 M3 Stuart light tanks cross the sandbar. What happens next is described by war correspondent Richard Tregaskis. It was fascinating to see them bustling amongst the trees, spitting sheets of yellow flame. Group after group were flushed out and shot down. The final count of 917 Japanese soldiers who landed at Taivu Point. Approximately 800 are dead. 128 survivors melt into the jungle to send a radio message reporting the disaster. Colonel Ichiki, most accounts say he burned his regimental colors and committed ritual suicide. American casualties? 40 killed and wounded. The realization. The captured Japanese diaries tell the real story. The shock wasn't just the defeat, it was the how. The Americans didn't panic under night attack like they were supposed to. They didn't break when charged by screaming warriors. They waited, in prepared positions, with unlimited ammunition, and they systematically destroyed an entire regiment with concentrated firepower. One Japanese officer wrote, "The machine guns never stopped, never jammed. Every Marine seemed to carry more ammunition than our entire squad." But it wasn't over. September 12th, another attack. This time, 5,000 Japanese troops under General Kawaguchi. The target? A ridge south of Henderson Field. But the Marines knew they were coming. Lieutenant Colonel Merritt Edson positioned 840 raiders and paratroopers along the ridge. Machine guns, mortars, artillery. Every field of fire calculated. For 2 nights, Japanese forces charged up that ridge. Hundreds died in the machine gun fire. At one point, they got within 50 yards of Edson's command post. Edson himself grabbed a rifle and joined the firing line. But again, American firepower prevailed. 850 Japanese dead. The ridge would forever be known as Bloody Ridge. But it wasn't over. September 12th, another attack. This time 5,000 Japanese troops under General Kawaguchi. The target? A ridge south of Henderson Field. But the Marines knew they were coming. Lieutenant Colonel Merritt Edson positioned 840 raiders and paratroopers along the ridge. Machine guns, mortars, artillery, every field of fire calculated. For 2 nights, Japanese forces charged up that ridge. Hundreds died in the machine gun fire. At one point, they got within 50 yards of Edson's command post. Edson himself grabbed a rifle and joined the firing line. But again, American firepower prevailed. 850 Japanese dead. The ridge would forever be known as Bloody Ridge. October. The Japanese mount their largest offensive yet. General Hyakutake himself comes to Guadalcanal to lead 5,600 troops in a coordinated attack. They even bring tanks, rare on Guadalcanal because they're so hard to transport. The assault begins October 23rd. The 9 Japanese tanks knocked out immediately by American anti-tank guns. The main night attack stopped cold by Lieutenant Colonel Chesty Puller's Marines. 2,000 Japanese soldiers die trying to break through. American casualties? Several hundred. Severe, but sustainable. And that's the key word, sustainable. The logistics nightmare. Here's what the Japanese didn't understand. American supply ships delivered food, ammunition, medicine, and equipment regularly, protected by aircraft from Henderson Field. Japanese logistics? Whatever could fit on destroyer decks. American Marines ate canned rations. Not delicious, but adequate. Japanese soldiers made a single rice ball last an entire day. American wounded got plasma transfusions, sulfa drugs, surgical care, and evacuation to hospitals. Japanese wounded got a bandage if they were lucky. or a grenade and orders to commit suicide if they weren't. By late October, a captured Japanese medical report revealed the horrifying truth. 60% of Japanese forces were incapacitated by disease or malnutrition. Combat effectiveness, 30% of authorized strength. Soldiers dying at 50 per day, most from starvation, not bullets. The naval battles, November 12th to 15th. The Naval Battle of Guadalcanal. 4 days of the most intense surface combat in naval history. American ships engaged Japanese battleships in confused nighttime melees. 2 American admirals killed, the only U.S. flag officers killed in surface combat during the entire war. But the critical result? Japanese bombardment of Henderson Field fails. The airfield stays operational. A Japanese convoy trying to land the 38th Division with heavy equipment is destroyed. Of 11 transport ships, only 4 reach Guadalcanal. Aircraft and artillery destroy them before they can fully unload. 5,000 Japanese casualties. For the starving soldiers already on the island, this was the end. No reinforcements, no supplies, no hope. The evacuation. December 1942. Japanese command makes the decision. They can't admit defeat publicly. But privately, they know continuing means the complete destruction of the 17th Army. Operation K. February 1943. Using destroyer runs, Japanese naval forces extract 10,652 men over 3 nights. A remarkable achievement. But it couldn't hide the magnitude of the defeat. The cost. Japanese forces on Guadalcanal, approximately 36,000 total. Dead, 25,000 to 30,000. 14,800 killed in combat. 10,000 to 15,000 from disease and starvation. American casualties, 1,600 killed, 4,200 wounded. Several thousand disabled by disease. Severe losses, but replaceable. American industry was producing ships and aircraft faster than they could be lost. New divisions were training. The strategic initiative had permanently shifted. The lesson. Captured Japanese diaries from late in the campaign paint a picture of slow collapse. Rice rations reduced to 1 ball per day. Disease spreading everywhere. Bodies burned when we have strength. No more supplies coming. Eating grass and bark. Deaths from poisonous plants. One Japanese officer who survived wrote, "On Guadalcanal, we learned that courage and sacrifice were meaningless against an enemy whose supplies never ran out, whose wounded received care, whose artillery never stopped firing, whose aircraft controlled the skies." Another veteran said, "We believed we were superior warriors. We trained harder. We accepted death more readily. But on Guadalcanal, we learned that war is decided by systems." The Americans had systems for everything. Every system functioned. Our systems failed because they were never built properly in the first place. The transformation. For Japanese soldiers who survived Guadalcanal, the campaign represented the moment reality destroyed illusion. They learned their training was based on false assumptions. Their tactics were designed for a different kind of war. Their nation was engaged in a conflict it could not win through military means alone. Many later said Guadalcanal was when they first understood Japan would lose the war. For American forces, Guadalcanal proved something equally important. They could match Japanese troops in jungle combat brutality. The myth of Japanese invincibility was shattered. American defensive doctrine worked. The real terror, Japanese troops weren't terrified by American soldiers as individual fighters. They were terrified by the systematic, overwhelming, relentless application of firepower and material resources. It was a terror born not from fear of death, which they'd been trained to accept. It was the realization that courage meant nothing against an enemy whose industrial base could replace losses faster than combat could inflict them. The turning point, Guadalcanal, was where the Pacific War permanently shifted. From that point forward, Japanese forces would fight a losing battle against an enemy whose advantages grew larger every month. The jungle warfare of Guadalcanal became the template. American forces could fight and win in the most difficult terrain, provided they had logistics, coordination, and overwhelming firepower. And they had all three. On February 9, 1943, American patrols discovered Japanese forces had evacuated. General Patch sent a message to Admiral Halsey. Tokyo Express no longer has terminus on Guadalcanal. The campaign was over. The myth was dead. And Japan's march across the Pacific had finally been stopped. If you want to hear more stories like this, battles that changed history, moments when everything shifted, hit subscribe. Drop a comment. What battle should I cover next? Thanks for watching.